Alright, I'm driving now home from work in Orangeburg. Now, what I see here on the utility pole signs, cash for cars. Here's some signs, Italian fees, some other signs for garage sales, political signs, all kinds of things. Is it really worthwhile to change these laws and to really take away freedom? I mean, it's shocking to me that someone who calls himself a Republican is trying to convince Orangeburg because of a fear. I mean, it's obvious that this all has to do with the fear of an Eruv going up. Does it even make sense when, first of all, there's no sign that anything like that is going on here? There's no interest in Orangeburg. Nobody wants to move here, and there's no plan like that. But it just shows the fear mongering and the absolute bigotry. And this goes back to here, political sign here. Here's a sign on a tree, landscaping. All these things would have to come down, apparently, just because Chris Day is afraid maybe an Eruv is going to go up. There's some here's a glasswork sign, Cook's Glasswork. Here's there's some bumper stickers on the utility pole here. This is all in the town of, election signs. All this stuff is going to go down. People are willing to give up their liberty that they've had just out of a baseless fear. I mean, first of all, just common sense. Nobody builds an Eruv in order for people to move there. People move in first and the Eruv goes up. Brooklyn didn't have an Eruv for years, and many people still don't hold of any Eruvs in Brooklyn. And yet, Brooklyn are the biggest Orthodox communities of Brooklyn. Plus, look at all this garbage. There's no Hasidim here. There's nobody here. There's garbage on the ground, random cones and things. This isn't your holy town of Orangeburg that you're trying to keep the Jews out of. I mean, how are people so blinded? And again, there's trash on the ground, and yet everyone say, "Oh, look, Curious Joel is so dirty," because someone went and took a video right after the garbage truck went by, and the garbage truck, dropped a few things out, and they made it look, this is the dirtiest city. I mean, I'm going to Curious Joel now. I'll be there in a half hour. I mean, seriously, this is, but the thing is I don't know any place where an Eruv was ever built in order to accommodate people. In Bloomingburg, they're only still talking about building an Eruv now. There was no Eruv. Each house, they had an Eruv around the house. That's much more of an eyesore than putting up an Eruv around the whole town. I mean, what are people scared of? The White House is surrounded by an Eruv. I don't see bunch of Streimlach or black hats around the White House. I mean, we have, thank God, we do have, Orthodox Jews. We have our president's daughter and son-in-law are Orthodox Jews, but the point is that the White House itself is surrounded by an Eruv. I lived in Richmond, Virginia. They didn't put it there to attract people to move there. They put it there to accommodate, even though it was a very small community, maybe 40 families who were Sabbath observant, who would use the Eruv. But for those 40 families, and the town had no problem with it. Nobody had any problem with it. It also goes to show you something else, is that New York is a lot more bigoted, and usually it's the Democrats. I'm really surprised that a Republican like Chris Day, or so-called Republican, he's not really a Republican, because if he was a Republican, he would have more libertarian values, stand up to support the Constitution, to support freedom, to support liberty, instead of trying to enact things that are just going to hurt the people who live there now, take away their freedom and liberties out of a blind fear. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. I'd love to sit down and talk to Chris Day and just try to pick his brain and figure out what he's really thinking, because this is totally irrational, and nonsensical, and it just, I don't understand it. And I don't know if it's a lack of education or if it's just a genuine irrational fear that Hasidim are going to move in there when there's no interest in that. There's no interest whatsoever. I don't understand it. All right, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'd really like to know, where is this fear coming from? And as far as what's going on in Mawa, if you look at the actual map of the Eruv for Muncie that went slightly into Mawa, it's not big enough for anyone to move into that area. The whole reason that it went over the border slightly was just out of convenience, because otherwise they'd have to put up their own new poles, and so to save money it was cheaper just to rent from the poles there, and and use existing poles. But it was not, there is absolutely zero intention based on this Eruv of people moving into Mawa from the Hasidic community. So, and if, as they say, oh, you're welcome, so why is there this fight against the Eruv? Meaning it was all done legally, it was all done with the police there and everything, and then they had to dig up some way to invent an interpretation of a law that was on the books after it had already been up with the full permission of the town, with the full permission of the police themselves were there when it was put up. And just all of a sudden they're like, oh, they got to figure out some way to make something out of this, and they're just making themselves look like fools. I don't understand it. It's the same thing like that Daily Show episode with the Eruv in the Hamptons, that all these people fighting it are really making themselves look foolish. But I expect this type of foolish behavior from like a Bernie Sanders supporter who in general hates religion, hates God, wants to close down churches. I expect it from like liberal Jews, self-hating Jews. I don't really expect it from someone who calls himself a Republican, except we know, the Days have their history. They're not real Republicans. They're Democrats in Republicans' clothing. All right, God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the best.